Incompetent people surround me wherever I go, and I wish it wasn't out of line to tell them so. The waiter never seems to get my order right. Seems like I got to complain almost every night. How much longer can I take this abuse? I try to be nice, but what's the use when I'm the only one that does anything right? Sometimes it seems like the world is run by chimpanzees, even though some of them might come with college degrees. It's getting hard to separate the facts from fiction, but I think I can say with obvious conviction that in this old world, everybody's wrong but me.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Laws, and welcome to Uncommon Sense. Today we're going to be discussing uglyism, which is prejudice against ugly people, placebos, gay marriage, paranoia, which happens to be on the rise, and how some smokers may be banned from fostering children. But first I want to introduce my esteemed panelists. We have Mr. Charles Parselle, who is a mediator and an attorney. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And we have Mr. Ralph Cissne, who is a writer and a creative strategist. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charlotte.
So first I want you two to look at each other, and one of you is paranoid. According to recent studies, as much as 50%, you don't have to keep looking at each other, by the way.
Thanks for the reprieve.
As many as 50% of the public in America are paranoid. And there's been an increase. And what do you think of the reasons for this?
Well, I'd like to say that paranoia has, for a long time, been something I'm quite afraid of. But after a very long time in therapy, I realized that it really, the paranoid, the part of me that was afraid of being paranoid was really my other personality, the schizoid.
Well, I'm glad you think that's entertaining.
I do. Why is 50% of the population paranoid? No, they have good reason to be afraid. The other 50% are numb.
I'm surprised it's not 90%, because most people are kind of operating out of a fear-based experience anyway.
Well, I mean, I think that it has to do with our culture partly, with more violence and more conspiracies that have come to the fore, with things in history like Watergate, or even this movie, The Changeling, that's out, talks about the conspiracy of LAPD. And so you've got cultural things and violence. You have more people in cities, that means there are more people around, so there's potentially more to be afraid of. And then you also have psychiatrists who, I think, personally, I have a little cynical attitude about psychiatrists, but I think that they, want to diagnose people as mentally ill. And in fact, they say that like 1 out of 7 people in this country, according to officially the psychiatrists, say that they're mentally ill. So I think that in order to, perpetuate their profession, this serves them to...
I think that statistic is very low. When you're driving on the street, you have to remember that at least probably 70% of the people on the road with you are either highly neurotic, on medications for that or some other mental disorder, or are drunk, or been drinking. So I just think that people are trying to medicate their fears. And if you watch TV, it's understandable why they would be afraid.
They should be very afraid. I would like to make one serious comment. First of all, when you asked the question, I thought we were working on a comedy routine. But now, as I know you want to go on to another topic, I will say this. Whoever invented this false and ridiculous statistic has got something to sell.
Well, it is kind of a ridiculous statistic because they say as much as 50%, but it's between 5 and 50%. So the statistic itself could make you paranoid. I mean, it's kind of, I've never heard of such a wide range on a statistic. But I think people also have, you know, you have a perception of another person. You know, like if you're dating a girl, for example, you know, you come home and from a date and you say, oh, I think she really likes me. Or you say, oh, I don't think she likes me. I mean, that could actually be categorized as paranoid if you think she doesn't like you, but you're just trying to get an impression. But
if you're okay with yourself, you say, you know, I did the best I can. If she responds to my, you know, natural charm and brilliance, then, you know, she'll go out with me again. If not, it's her loss. That's high self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we were talking about paranoia.
It's all.
I am, but I mean, you could be paranoid and thinking, oh, she doesn't like me, or, you know, she's looking at me mean. Maybe she, you know, is after me. I mean, you could actually, in your mind,
you're going to redefine paranoid. So
that
it means absolutely anything. Then say everyone is paranoid, and please buy my drug.
I'm not saying everybody's paranoid. That's what the study said.
Oh, the study said that. The study.
But uglyism, I'm going to go into the next topic. Uglyism, which is prejudice against ugly people. And actually, it's kind of a big problem. It's not something that's discussed much. And there's a campaign, a Be Ugly campaign, because of this show, Ugly Betty, and there's this idea to try to bring self-esteem of young girls up, because many of them don't have high self-esteem. But what's really disturbing is that if you are ugly, you have, you're going to be getting less pay statistically in your job. And it doesn't matter, it's across professions. Even if you have a job that you're in, like, you know, the stock room, and you're not even meeting with customers, you are going to be, it's like 5 or 10% less pay if you are, quote, ugly. It's harder to get hired, it's harder to get high pay. And ugliness is associated with evil in our society. I mean, that's how people look at it.
Well, I think ugliness comes from the inside out. I've always believed this, but having grown up a beautiful person and a beautiful family, then you know, we were always looking out at those people going, gosh, what can we do to help them along? But now, I'm kidding, obviously, but I do think that it comes from the inside out. I think that what's most important to an employer, if you want to be an employee, you're sort of sacrificing things on the playing field of what is culturally acceptable, and thin and being beautiful and wearing all the makeup, whether you're a boy or male or female, obviously plays a big role. How you dress plays a big role in the corporate workplace. Mm-hmm. But I think that you know, if you have confidence in yourself and believe in what you want and pursue what you want, you probably aren't working for a corporation anyway. And that would, in that case, your outward appearance has less to do with that than what your ideals are and what you have to contribute to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is a funny topic, but I would say this: I've never seen an ugly 4-year-old. Have you?
Well, I mean, some people might say a child with Down syndrome or some kind of illness.
Okay.
Might say that. I mean, I don't know.
Okay, hang on.
I don't say that, but
if you have Down syndrome, one, you're not going to know whether you're good looking or ugly, and two, you got other problems altogether. Although I'm told by people who have Down syndrome children that they're like an angel coming into their life, seriously.
Yeah.
But we're now talking about uglyism, and I said I've never seen an ugly 4-year-old or a 5-year-old for that matter. So they're just not. Okay, maybe they're just not. So ugliness and good looks is something that attaches itself to you when you're growing up, isn't it? There's something whole really weird about, you know, inventing a word uglyism. I mean, the word itself is horribly ugly, but there's something weird about inventing.
And, you know, it's not something that's discussed, but there is a prejudice against ugly people. In fact,
you know, this is extending the meaning of the word prejudice way beyond any possible meaning.
But Charles makes a very good point, because I remember in grade school, it was probably about 6th grade, going into middle school, junior high we called it then, that the lines of demarcation were drawn, where you either adapted to what was popular and what, you know, other people approved of, or whether you went your own way. And if you went your own way, then, you know, people would say things about you and ostracize you if you weren't part of the clique, you know, whether it was the jocks or the socias or the whatever. And it wasn't just about being a nerd or not being a nerd. It was really about, like, you know, those people are different from us, so, you know, we're going to be prejudiced toward them. So I think that, quite frankly, actually being different is something that should be cultivated. If you look at literature and a lot of popular, like Ugly Betty's another example, of people who are different but have something to contribute,
Well, it's important to look at this issue because apparently if you are considered ugly as a child, your chance as you grow up, the chance of you becoming a criminal is highly increased. They've done federally funded research that has come to the conclusion that the uglier you are, the more crime. It's associated with more crime. Average people, medium amount of crime. The better looking people, less crime. So you don't want these disconnected young teenagers to grow up feeling disconnected, because that's probably why they are going to be more likely to commit crime. But I say how you're perceived by other people comes from the inside out. It's a matter of how you express yourself and how you are. And if your parents are telling you that you're a rotten egg and you're never going to go anything, that little 5-year-old angel, by the time they get to be, a preteen or a teenager, does turn into an ugly person who can be, resentful, predatory, and start acting out. There's also a World Association of Ugly People, which I thought was kind of interesting. It started in Italy, and they have about 20,000 members worldwide. And I went on Wikipedia. They had a list of the most famous people in this organization. And normally when you go on Wikipedia and you look up a person, there's a photo and a bio of the person. But the ugly people, they didn't have any photos. There was only one with a photo. I just thought that was really odd. They should put their baby picture up there, because in that case they'll all be beautiful. Then they're all beautiful. That's right.
Well, that is odd, because they've joined the association. So
they
association of ugly people.
They've admitted
That's purely visual. So
that's right.
To join it and be featured on the website without giving you a picture, that's ridiculous. Someone should speak to them about that.
But I think the whole topic really sort of speaks to our cultural obsession with the superficial.
Right.
So
no, I agree.
I'd like to hear what someone has to say, what they're doing, who they are, before I make any judgments about that mole on the end of their nose. That's.
Well, I'm going to go on to the next topic. Half of all the doctors routinely prescribe placebos. And they don't tell their patients that only 5% of the time do they say that it's a placebo. Normally they say, this is not something that's normally prescribed, but I think this could help you. And they find that, psychologically it can help people with hypertension, with pain. They'll give them vitamins, they'll give them headache pills. They'll give them antibiotics or sedatives. Those are the most popular things that are given. What do you think about doctors prescribing placebos without a patient's permission? It's an ethical duty perhaps they have to be honest with the patient.
At least.
Of course not. The whole a placebo, I will please you, a placebo is merely a remedy that has not been proven to work. But as we know, the psychological impact of what the doctor tells you to do is immense. What these clever doctors are doing is recognizing that the psychological effect exists, and that has been proven to exist. If a doctor was to say, take this pill, it doesn't work, then
I agree.
The potential benefit of the placebo effect would be lost. Ergo, of course the doctor's not going to tell the patient.
I think that they should just have the patient sign something when they go in saying, various forms of treatment may be used, including, placebos or, et cetera.
No.
Just the very first time they come to see the doctor.
I'd find another doctor.
They have disclosed it.
On the assumption that the patient won't read it.
Exactly.
Right? So who are you protecting?
But even if they do read it, they're not going to know exactly the details about what may be a placebo and what may not.
What's the point of the disclosure?
The disclosure, they're doing their
ethical.
They're doing their ethical duty, as far as I'm concerned.
No, their ethical.
The AMA doesn't like the idea that the doctors are doing this. By the way, they frown against it.
No, the Hippocratic Oath says, first do no harm. By definition, a placebo does no harm.
Giving a headache pill, I think those do harm.
There is nothing in the Hippocratic Oath about full disclosure. That's a modern legal imposition.
I don't think that you want to be giving antibiotics to people, sedatives. You don't want to be giving drugs to people. Drugs are bad. If they don't need a drug, you don't give drugs to people. I think
that's the choice of the individual with their doctor, and the doctor should be straight up with them.
Drugs are bad. That's rather extreme.
That's rather extreme.
Yeah.
Gay marriage. Now.
Oh, all right.
Gay marriage. This is in California, as you know, in 2000, 61% of the vote. We established that we would have a state law against gay marriage.
So was Prop 77 or?
I don't remember the number, but in May, the Supreme Court, the California Supreme Court, overturned it and said that that wasn't constitutional. So the supporters, those who did not want gay marriage, put Prop 8 on the ballot recently in California, and it passed. It barely passed, but it did pass. So now, of course, there are protests all over the country. There are a lot of people very upset. There are 3 lawsuits that have been filed regarding Prop 8 to overturn it because it changes the California Constitution to say that marriage is only between a man and a woman. What do you think about the idea of gay marriage? What do you think about the idea of these lawsuits? And should the people's word stand?
It doesn't discount the civil unions and all the rights that they're entitled to. It's the issue of the word marriage, and their coalition of people who typically vote Democratic and are liberal, Latinos and African Americans are the ones actually who sort of tipped the scale against it passing.
Exactly. They're protesting the Mormons because the Mormons put a lot of money into it. But it is, if the Hispanic community, the Latino community had not supported it, it would not have passed. And it was like 70% of the African American community who supported Prop 8. So that was a huge number, although there are not as many African Americans in California, so it didn't tip the balance. So
I think it is a civil rights issue. If you go back to the to the 50s, when they had votes in the largely Democratic South, they would vote against civil rights issues for black people time and time again. So, what's your opinion on what the courts are going to do?
Well, I think it'll be overturned on the grounds that the Constitution itself prescribes the manner in which the Constitution may be changed, and the referendum process does not comply with those requirements. So I certainly hope that it will be overturned, because if it's not overturned, California will be the only state, I think, nation in the entire world that has a highly discriminated provision written into the Constitution. It's so bad for California. As for I completely understand the Christian viewpoint that says that marriage is the union between a man and a woman, but Christians can still go on believing that if gays are allowed to marry. I know gays who are married, and I am very sympathetic to their desire to call themselves married. To have this so much fuss about a single word on the grounds that it does or does not tear the fabric of society, which is a metaphor, silly metaphor in my opinion, is overdoing it. So
words are powerful.
Well, where did you read that, my dear? Words are powerful. Yes, that's true, but we have at least a 50% divorce rate. We have really a very substantial breakdown of the family and of the whole idea of marriage in the 20th century and now the 21st. So to say, under this tattered and broken tent, gay people may never come, I think is wrong and a discrimination, and I think the Supreme Court will follow my view.
I think they will too, although I've heard different opinions. I mean, I have heard that you need to have a 2/3 vote in the legislature to change the Constitution, and that's obviously not what happened with Prop 8. But I've heard other legal opinions. Larry Elder, for example, who has a talk radio show, who says that his interpretation is that this will stand and that the people have spoken. And then you have the 18,000 couples, gay couples, who've gotten married between May and now. And what happens to them? Do their marriages stand or not?
Quite well, as you know, as we both know, because we know him, Attorney General Jerry Brown says he will take no action to overturn the validity of those marriages.
That's what he says, but that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen.
No, that's true. Larry Elder, anyone who says it won't stand has got a good chance of being correct, and anyone who says it will stand has a good chance of being correct. So we're just going to wait and see on that, aren't we? As for the morality of it, to me the moral question is simple. But I have another viewpoint on this, because I know you want to go into another topic. My view is that the state shouldn't recognize marriage at all, that the state should simply give a license to anyone who wants it to be, to fall under the correct tax provisions and have all the rights of hospitals.
I agree. I think that people would fight that, but I think it's a great idea.
And people should just get married in the religion of their choice, or not at all.
I think it's great. I just think it's something that a lot of people would fight. The protests, I thought there were some kind of funny little phrases I was going to say on the protests that are going on around the country. One of the things they say is no more Mr. Nice Gay. They say straights against hate, and they're going to, on December 10th, they're going to have a day without a gay. I thought that was kind of funny, actually, kind of cute in the media. So
yeah, well, they need to measure their protest. I think that, you know, going into churches and throwing stuff around isn't helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, they shouldn't definitely not do that.
They're doing a little bit of violence. Well, in England, and you're from England, one of the town councils in London has passed a ban on allowing smokers to take in foster children, and they actually need more foster parents. But that's what they decided because of secondhand smoke, and other councils in England are looking at passing the same kind of ban. What do you think of this?
First of all, I'm from Rhodesia. If we're talking about as a matter of birth, if we're talking about
you grew up in
local councils in England, do all kinds of silly things all the time, and it's always reported in the press. And I think there's a competition among local councils to see which one could do the most ridiculous thing. One certainly can understand that there is some risk from secondhand smoke, but I think we're talking about foster children who are being fostered out on a temporary basis.
Right, exactly.
And so, is it better to stay in an institution or go into a household where there's some smoke? I mean, far be it from me to second guess this council, wherever it might be.
If the kids are in the house, the parents should go outside and smoke. The responsible adults. That's just the way it should be. I grew up in a household with Thanksgiving. There would be 17 adults smoking in a very small 3-bedroom house at one time. We had to hug low to the ground, the kids, just to avoid the haze of the smoke.
Well, how about...
Let's find the door.
How about taking the children away from all regular parents who smoke and putting them into foster homes? This is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I think you have a slippery slope, because I think you could say, okay, well, you know, parents who use foul language can't adopt kids, or they have too many sweets in the house. I mean, I think you could take it as far as you want to take it with many things that are not healthy, perhaps, for children that parents do. So
people who use a George Foreman grill or deep fry fish.
That's right. That's right. Well, another study that's pretty interesting has to do with autism, and there's apparently an increase in autism. And they did a study, and they didn't expect these results, but they studied Washington, Oregon, and California, and they broke it up by counties, and they came to the realization that precipitation has something to do with autism. So the areas, the counties that had more rainfall had higher rates of autism. So if you're in LA...
We don't have any here.
Well, we have no rainfall in LA, so there's no autism. But actually you have a 1/3 lower rate of autism in Los Angeles than you would in a rainy county. So, I mean, there's definitely been an increase, although when you say an increase, maybe the way they're defining autism, I believe it was 30 years ago, it was like 1 out of every 2,500 children had autism. Now it's 1 out of every 150. So the question is it the rainfall? Is it toxins in the rain that's coming down? Is it something about being inside that's detrimental, like lack of vitamin D or exposure to toxins in the house?
Clearly, I don't think that they know now, but a lot has been made of this, and more and more, I think that they realize that autism may have, be as a result of in vitro environmental issues, which include whatever comes down from the sky when it rains.
Well, autism is a terrible affliction, and really, and to be the parents of an autistic child is a tremendous ordeal and challenge. So this is not something to make a joke about. No, I'm really serious about that. I mean, all that's happened, if there is such a study, all that's happened is that a correlation has been noted. Doesn't mean a thing. There's no causation even implied in that study. And,
they are saying there's definitely causation. I mean, they don't know specifically what the cause is, but it's definitely something to do with either being in a rainy area or not being able to go out due to too much rain.
Oh, no. There is no causation in what you just reported, merely a correlation.
Well, that's because they don't know the cause yet.
And so first of all, so we've been around there for at least 100,000 years. But let's say we've been civilized now for maybe 500 years. Suddenly, rain. The whole of Europe is covered with rain all the time, a lot of the time. So this is, you'd expect England to be packed with autistic people. And they're not autistic, they're mainly... So I don't, these studies come out all the time and they're just not really, I'd say more research needed. Give the guy a grant, which is probably what
Well, they're still doing research on it. It's kind of interesting. I did a study. I mean, I looked in the listing for various states as far as illnesses, and California is not that great in most areas, but we don't have very many smokers. We're actually very good in that area, and we're also very good with low infant mortality. So those were areas that were.
So now we have this
California.
theory that rainfall is implicated. I'll give you another theory, which has a lot more credence behind it, which is vaccinations. 40 years ago, 50 years, how old am I? More than 60 years ago, we weren't getting vaccinated all that much. Now these kids get a lot of vaccinations. There's a lot of fear that the vaccinations are implicated in autism, and lots of other things too. So, it's a terrible thing, and no answer has been found.
Well, healthcare is the next topic, and what's kind of interesting is and this is something insurance companies claim they didn't really realize until recently, but apparently women pay a lot more for health insurance than men do, as much as 50% more.
That's
so if
sexism.
you were paying $300 a month, I would have to pay $450, and this is for a policy that has nothing to do with, helping me to have babies or any of that. This is just for the same policy that a male would have, and the insurance companies are saying, well, women use health care more, they go more often to the doctor for preventative care. And the question is, should this be leveled out? The insurance companies say, well, if we level it out, the men are going to have to pay more. So we can't just, take less money. We have to raise the price for males.
We just won't pay. We'll stop. Cause that's the way guys are.
You just won't pay what?
Well, women are much more proactive about, their health and
so you just won't have health insurance.
Like, so what? We'll just spend that money on what?
I mean, should there be a law? Because, employers are required to provide, when they provide health care, they're not allowed by law to charge more to women than men. So you actually may have a ramification where employers don't really want to hire women as much as men or give them a high salary because they already know that the health care is going to cost more. So that's why I'm wondering if there should be a law.
Not another law, Charlotte?
Another law! You can never have too many laws. That's why my name is Laws.
I once had a woman come in and apply for a position at a company that I had years ago. She said, and at the end of it, she said, well, do you have a dental plan? I said, yes, I encourage everyone I know to floss.
Okay, I want to thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me. And I hope we brought some uncommon sense into your life. As you putter through your day, remember, everybody's wrong but me and him and him. See you next time.
Sometimes it seems like the world is run by chimpanzees, even though some of them might come with college degrees. It's getting hard to separate the facts from fiction, but I think I can say with obvious conviction that in this old world, everybody's wrong but me. Everybody's wrong to disagree with me. That really chaps my eye. I thought it all through so very carefully. There's no point even considering the other side. Still,